Go ahead.
At 7:06 p.m., Planning Commission will come to order. It appears that we do have a quorum, and we can welcome Mr. Polyak when he arrives. Mr. Mayor, roll call, please.
Okay. Mike Bush,
Here.
Robert Campbell,
Here.
John Codria,
Here.
and I'm here.
All right. We have a quorum, so we'll proceed to our first item of business, which is correction and adoption of the minutes for the Planning Commission meeting of June 3rd, 2020. Have the members of the commission present had a time to review those minutes? And if so, are there any motions to amend or otherwise correct the minutes of June 3rd, 2020?
I'd like to move to amend.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the planning
Amend,
commission.
I'm sorry.
Amend the minutes.
Amend, I found an error, John, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. Where's the error, Mr. Bush?
Bottom of page 2, the very last line. No greater than 1.5 ton weight to no greater than 100,000 pound. It should be 10,000. There's too many zeros there, I believe.
Oh, you're right. There's
that
too
should
many.
be 10,000 pounds.
All right, thank you for your sharp eye. We will, is there a motion to amend the minutes by striking 1 0 so that they reflect no greater than 10,000 pound vehicle weight?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to amend the minutes to reflect that the
Amendment.
poundage should be 10,000 pounds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay? Motion carries. Is there a motion now to approve the minutes of June 3rd, 2020 as amended?
I will move to approve.
Is there a second?
Yes.
All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of June 3rd, 2020 as amended. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, bear with me a second while I get that off the screen and get the next item on the screen. And the next item will be the application of, whether I'm pronouncing it correctly or not, Republic Boston Heights LLC with respect to property at 6625 Dean Memorial Parkway.
Okay.
What time did Arthur send that email? That's where it's at.
Okay. Which email?
The one that had all of the there it is. Let me see.
325.
Yeah, I got it. All right, so let's go to the one of 6625 Dean Memorial Parkway. All right, I've got the application downloaded that was sent to us.
Okay.
All right, who's here to speak in favor of the application? Unmute, please.
My name is Richard Rubin. I'm one of the owner investor developers.
Okay, great. Go ahead. Would you raise your right hand, please?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm? All right, who's the second gentleman right there? PFG. Who's PFG?
Yeah, there are 3 PFGs on here who are included
under my invitation. There is a Richard Rubin, who's the CEO of Republic. And the other one, oh, I see you, Chris. Chris, good to see
Okay.
you also.
All right, and the chair acknowledges the arrival of Mr. Poliak
Yes.
to the meeting. So we are right now on the first application, Republic LLC. And why don't we, let's do the first gentleman first with the hat and the beard. What's your name, sir?
My name is Richard Rubin.
Richard Rubin. All right. And the gentleman who spoke about 3 people being on named BFG,
My name is-
PFG. What's your name, sir?
Peter
I can't hear you.
Gierer, Gierer.
And first name?
Peter
Peter Gierer. All right. And who is the third gentleman? I can't hear you, sir.
You're muted, Chris.
He's on mute. His name's Chris Potterpin.
Okay. Mr. Rubin, why don't you start and I will ask you so I don't have to, well, that's okay. Each of you raise your right hands, please. I cannot see the third gentleman now. He's not got his pic. There
There he
you go.
is.
All right. Would all 3 of you raise your right hands, please? Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Rubin, would you like to start?
Yes. Thank you very much for the introduction, sir. And thank you.
And what I'd like you to do, sir, is first of all, state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Richard Rubin, R-U-B-I-N. I'm
Thank
the
you.
Chief Executive Officer of Republic, R-E-P-V-B-L-I-K, and we are investor developers in the United States.
With the second gentleman here, Mr. Gierer, I believe, would you like to state your name and spell your last name for the record?
My name is Peter Gierer, Gierer, architect for Republic.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? It was garbled.
My name is Peter,
No, we got that. What's your position?
architect for Republic.
Thank you, sir. And the third gentleman, would you state your name and spell your last name for the record and tell us what your position is?
Yeah, my name is Chris Potterpin. That's P-O-T-T-E-R-P-I-N, and I'm a principal with Republic.
Thank you very much. All right, which one of you 3 gentlemen wishes to testify first?
I'll start. It's Richard Rubin speaking. If
Yes,
that's
sir,
okay.
go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. You know, we're very privileged, obviously, to be looking at this opportunity in your part of the world. We visited the property probably about a month to 6 weeks ago, and we've been looking at this opportunity for quite some time. We specialize in the adaptive reuse of hospitality assets into multifamily apartments. And we are doing a number of these projects all across the country at present. In fact, we're doing a significant adaptive reuse project, which we hope to be on site with at the moment in one of your geographical neighbors in Columbus. And on that same trip, with our full design team and our full professional team, we visited the Boston Heights opportunity, which we're talking about today. And we have obviously submitted our application. And our idea for the property, again, if it's suitable to those present here and the community is to create a mixed-use precinct on this particular property, having a number of residential apartments to retrofit the current mothballed and closed hotel into 170 some apartments. We'd also have a very large amenity aspect to the property, which is where the mixed use aspect comes in, where we would be having co-working commercial office space, some storage facilities for our tenants, not for the outside public, in some of the disused space that used to be part of the hotel that would no longer be purposed for that. We also are looking at a daycare facility based on a number of folks mid and post-COVID working from home, which is another reason why we're looking at a pretty state-of-the-art co-working facility on the property, a gym on the property as well, and obviously a number of parking bays, because the property is very well parked from that perspective. The demographic to which we're appealing is a high-end demographic, certainly based on the income levels of this particular area. There's nothing low income about what we anticipate doing, not in schedule of finish, nor in our offering, and nor in our placement of this as far as the community is concerned. So I just wanted to introduce that, and potentially, if the commission has any questions for me personally, otherwise we can wait for our architect, Peter, to talk through some of the design constructs that we're looking at, and then my partner Chris can obviously add in anything that I may have left out, or that may speak to certain of the questions or concerns that you esteemed gentlemen may have.
Does anyone on the commission have any questions for the applicant, the applicant's first witness? Or you want to hold them until we've heard the whole thing? Okay, Mayor Gauncey, did you
I was
have
just going to have one question. Richard stated 170 apartments, and in the application, Exhibit B, it says 210. So there's like a 40 apartment difference there. I'm just wondering is this a different application that you're applying to, or is this the one that was turned in? I don't know.
Richard, I put the 210 in the application. This is Peter Gear, of course.
Yeah, okay, thank you,
Okay.
Peter.
I have the 210 in the application. At the time of the application, I used a broad rule of thumb that we had been looking at for a number of different properties. Since that time, we and Richard and his team and our team have gotten together and seen that the property would be best developed with fewer apartments involved. And in an effort to be fully transparent to you, we've announced the lower number in this case.
Okay.
Thank you for
I
that.
just had a question. I didn't know if we had the most current application here or not. Okay. That's all the questions I have at this
Okay,
time.
I do have, I guess I don't at this point. I did, but it slipped my mind. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, I did. I remember now. On your application, it says that your interest in the property is as owner, or is the property, let's see, the owner is Maplewood Lodging LLC, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
So what is Republic Boston Heights LLC's interest in the property?
That is the purchase of the property, sir. So we are currently under contract to
Do you,
purchase.
is it under contract right now, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions? All right, then, Mr. Gear, would you like to go next?
Happily.
Thank you.
We're looking at the complete redevelopment of the hotel site, looking at the site itself with renovating the parking lighting, the exterior of the building, and of course the interior of the building, which would be taking the current ballrooms and other public spaces in the building and developing them as commercial and amenities for the tenants. The existing hotel rooms would be developed as residential units. I have a couple, if I can pull them up, renderings of what one of the studio apartments, for instance, might look like. If I can do this. Oh, okay. I've been disabled. Anyway, as to using share screen, but
All right. Let me interrupt you for half a second,
Sure.
because along those lines, are you going to be knocking out internal walls or are you going to just be using the existing hotel rooms?
to the largest extent possible, we're going to be leaving the existing walls the way they are. The way the hotel is situated, it is extraordinarily easy to introduce a door between two units and develop, for instance, a one-bedroom unit without having to do a considerable amount of demolition, which of course is attractive to the investment in the property.
Thank you. Did you have anything further to add? Mr. Gear, anything further to add?
And anything further? I think that what we are looking at here is something that I would add that we are looking to develop a property that would be attractive to emerging professionals in the area and to the service personnel in the area. And I think I can finish with that. Thank you.
Okay, the third gentleman, your name escapes me. What was it?
Chris Potterpin.
Chris Potterpin. Okay, Mr. Potterpin, you've already been sworn. Did I have you state your name for the record? I think I did. And spell your
You did.
last name. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and give us your testimony?
Sure, thank you. And also echoing Richard's comments, thank you, gentlemen, for hearing us and for your interest in our proposal. I don't have too much that hasn't been stated already, and I think we had some renderings that we were attempting to pull up, but I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do that via the technology here. But I do want to say that we do think this will be take an asset that is currently closed down, breathe new life into it, and will be a great asset for your community. As the gentlemen have described, we're focusing on lower bedroom count units and focusing on the emerging professionals and younger individuals, and providing those folks a place to call their own before they're ready to potentially purchase a home or move into bigger, more expansive housing. But again, with a lower bedroom count, it provides a different option that isn't necessarily already served in the community. And so we are excited between that and the mixed use nature of what we are bringing here to, like I said, to breathe life into this campus and this community area, this area of the community. So we appreciate your consideration, and I do have some of the numbers in front of me too, as we were speaking earlier. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding that.
Anybody have any questions for the third witness or for the second witness?
John,
Yes.
I have a question, I guess to any one of them. The price range, what are they looking at as far as monthly rental for these units? Are there going to be 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom?
Mostly, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it'll be mostly studios and 1 bedrooms with some 2 bedrooms available. Our price range starts on the lowest end of $795 and will go up to $1,795.
$795.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Any other questions from anyone on the commission? Yeah, I mean, it would have helped if the application had the renderings that were referred to in the presentation, because I'm not sure we have sufficient information to proceed on the application. I mean, you're asking us to rezone this parcel, and it just doesn't seem to me that we have enough to act on it at the present time. Well, if no one else has any other comments or evidence in support of the application, why don't we hear from the zoning inspector? So, Mr. Gorog, are you here to speak on behalf of the village?
It's actually Arthur Schmidt is the zoning inspector. I'm the engineer, Mr. Cobria.
Okay.
So Arthur Schmidt will be speaking.
Okay, would you raise your right hand, please? I can't. Oh, okay. There you are down there. I didn't see Arthur. All right. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. State your name and spell your last name for the record, please.
Arthur Schmidt with OHM Advisors, SCHMIDT.
And are you the zoning inspector for the Village of Boston Heights?
That is correct.
Okay. And as part of your duties, did you prepare and submit to the condition a staff report dated September 2, 2020 with respect to this application?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and give us what your findings are and what your recommendation is with respect to the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the report, it just talks about similar information that was presented by the applicants in terms of the overview. With respect to the considerations, just bringing up to the commission for your considerations, what we have here is the underlying zoning district is retail business. We are also in the Hines Hill Corridor Overlay District. Presently, that sub-district is mixed use general. And what we'd be looking at here, the request would be to rezone that sub-district, which again is currently mixed use general, to Village Center. By changing that to Village Center, that would permit the residential aspects of the mixed-use redevelopment that are being proposed here. So as you're looking through this, the standards or the design standards within the overlay district remain the same across the board, regardless of the sub-district. So I know we've had questions about that in the past. So landscaping standards, architectural and design standards, those remain the same across all the districts. So really the question becomes, is rezoning the subdistrict to allow for residential on this property. So while we haven't seen any of the proposed renderings related to the building type to see how the landscaping, the building materials form, everything like that would conform to the Heinz Hill Overlay District. Ultimately, what I'm indicating to the Planning Commission is they need to make a visionary determination if you wish to rezone this underlying district to permit residential within this parcel, to create this into a village center sub-district as opposed to the mixed-use sub-district. So again, design standards remain the same, but the uses obviously change by rezoning this into the village center sub-district.
And do you have a recommendation with respect to the application as it currently exists?
As it currently exists from the rezoning standpoint, I'm leaving that up to the commission members. You are carrying the vision of the Village of Boston Heights in terms of its comprehensive plan and the corridor overlay. This would adjust that in terms of changing it from the mixed use sub-district over to the village center. As you indicated, we haven't seen the exact specifications on how it's going to look, but the standards of the district remain the same, regardless of which sub-district we're looking at, or which sub-district ultimately is determined to be here on this parcel.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Does anyone on the commission have any questions for Mr. Schmidt?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead, Mr. Bush.
Arthur, beyond the rezoning, have you looked at all? Again, we don't have renderings, we don't have sketches, we don't have pictures. And I haven't recently reread the village center sub-district requirements from a landscaping perspective and a building perspective, but based on your knowledge of that sub-district, is that current building, is it possible to meet those standards? I know they're very exacting in terms of number, in terms of the parking, and in terms of the landscaping, and in terms of materials, etc. I guess my question for you is, if you looked at the requirements, and given that we don't have a sketch in front of us, do we believe that current parcel, that current building could be turned into something that would meet our requirements for 116303?
It's definitely possible that it can. Obviously, given that it's a current building and based on when the Heinz Hill corridor overlay was enacted, there was pieces put in there to allow the redevelopment of existing buildings. So trying to take that into account for the future. With respect to the sites and the parcels that were part of this overlay district. So it is possible. The elements which would, the requirements and the design standards which would be difficult to meet, obviously that would be on the design team to indicate which of those standards would be difficult to meet, and their explanation as to why they would be difficult to meet. And at that point we can, I can be able to review that and make a recommendation to Planning Commission, and then vice versa, Planning Commission can make the determination if those hardships are acceptable and are willing to overlook them for the development of the site. You will recall that since we're in the Heinz Hill Overlay District, that Planning Commission would look at any of those changes or variances to any of the standards within the Heinz Hill Overlay District, as opposed to going to Board of Zoning Appeals. So is it possible? Yes, it's possible, based on the layout, especially from the development standpoint. And I think, Mike, that's what you were getting to, more of the...
Exactly, yeah. Because what I'm hearing from the applicants is that removing walls is not desirable. I'm assuming significant changes to the facade would also probably make this not financially reasonable. So I guess my question would be, does it seem reasonable to meet our requirements, or do you think it's reasonable to get to that point?
I think it's reasonable. I will amend one piece. I think the without really getting into to see it would be the parking, and that's the case with any of our developments. Once we know the number of units that the applicant wants to put in, and then being able to look at the requirements for there. Again, those parking and I can't even actually speak with confidence. The existing parking that was there was for the hotel site, was for the hotel use. Depending on when that hotel came in, whether it's before or after the updates to the village zoning code, they may or may not have met those based on our new updates. So that would be something that we would have to look into once we have the rest of the details. So I couldn't say with confidence that they could or couldn't meet that, but I would imagine given the amount of space that's there that it should be doable. But that would remain to be seen.
Okay, so I guess what kinds of artifacts will we look at from the applicant in order to determine whether they meet those? I'm assuming we need a set of architectural drawings and some renderings of all of the facades, et cetera.
Correct. When we're looking, if the rezoning were to move forward, the additional information to actually look at the site plan would be our standard information for our conceptual or even final site plan approval. So a final site plan, landscaping plan with lighting, the building plan, any type of renderings related to the exterior of the building. From our standpoint, the exterior of the building is what we're really looking for, but I do know with respect to the Planning Commission that interior renderings would also be desired, but for the purposes of ours. Brian Gorog, our village engineer, may be able to jump on from more of the technical perspective to make sure all the utility, water, sewer lines are up to snuff and that there's no issues with those. I won't speak to that. I'm sure Brian can jump on here and speak to those issues, but there would also be those elements as well that we want to make sure that everything is to code and to standard.
All right, before we get on to Brian, are there any other questions from any member of the commission for Mr. Schmidt? Okay, does the applicant, do any of the applicant's representatives have any questions for Mr. Schmidt?
I don't have a question, but I do just want to echo one of the comments that he made, and
Sure.
if you don't mind, yeah, it's our understanding as well that, yeah, the intent of this point in this meeting is to make sure that our intended use matches your vision, as Mr. Schmidt said. And again, we understand that there's not a lot of renderings yet. We have a typical product, but a typical rendering that we could have showed here, but there's not a lot of renderings yet, but we will do quite a bit of work and then work with the commission at that point to make sure that we meet your standards, and this is up to your standard. This meeting is for our understanding, is just to make sure that there's an intent there so that we can go ahead and move forward and commission our architects to then do a lot of that work.
All right, I understand that, but what I haven't heard is why your intent to proceed with this development on this specific parcel is compatible with the village's overall plan and specifically with the Heinz Hill corridor and the village center subdivision within the Heinz Hill corridor, because you're asking us to approve something down there, residential units that really were not envisioned on that parcel when the village adopted its long-range plan and when the Heinz Hill corridor overlay district was enacted by the village. So I'd kind of like to hear some testimony with regard to that compatibility issue. If you want to wait on that for a minute, though, we could ask Mr. Gorog to follow up on Mr. Schmidt's comments. Sure. Mr. Gorog, would you be ready to proceed right now? Okay, thank you. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. State your name, please. Spell your last name, and go ahead and tell us what your position is with respect to the village.
Brian Gorog, Gorog, with OHM Advisors, engineer with the Village of Boston Heights.
Thank you. Please proceed.
So really at this point, what the application really is the rezoning. So there's nothing really for me to comment on a technicality until if it passes rezoning, and then I would look at it at that point with, the engineered drawings, and that would be at, a further, stage. So really with anything with the zoning, it's really under all what Arthur's has already spoke about. But if it did pass, of course we'd, do our due diligence and making sure it meet all engineering standards and so forth, part of it with parking, lighting, and everything with the building. But for this, what's appearing in front of us right now, is really, they're asking for, this parcel to be rezoned. So at this moment, I don't have any comments for this, but if it would pass, we would, my firm, along with Arthur, we do our due diligence and making sure they would follow all, zoning as well as engineering standards.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions on the commission for Mr. Gorog? Okay, do any of the applicant's representatives have a question for Mr. Gorog?
Only to state, of course, that it'd be our intention to meet all of the requirements that the engineering would require.
Oh, no, that's understood, sir. I mean, I appreciate that statement, but that would have to be done, so.
No,
yeah.
And it goes along with our intent, to the extent possible, to work as partners with the Village of Boston Heights to meet the aesthetic requirements that I've studied in the overlay district, the Connecticut.
Right, and I saw that in your, that statement was made in your application. So I appreciate your reiteration of it. Let's see, does the village have any other testimony to present with respect to this application? No? Okay. The chair had one question with respect to the application. On the application, where it says that the applicant is Republic Boston Heights LLC, there's another line that says charter number, and inserted there is NA for not applicable. And so could one of you three gentlemen address why your charter number is not applicable?
Sure. So our company is Republic LLC, and for each, and this type of product is something, the conversion of economically distressed or no longer used hotel assets is something that we specialize in. And as Richard spoke to at the top of the presentation, and we work on converting these assets into predominantly housing and mixed use precincts in different areas of the country. And for each project that we work on, we create a special use entity. In this case, it would be Republic Boston Heights LLC. So I think it's not necessarily not applicable, but not yet applied for, because pending this zoning going through and us beginning work, we would apply for that number under for the new entity.
Okay, then I see a problem with your application then. And it's, I mean, you're not currently a legal entity. And therefore, we have the solicitor here, so he can chime in with a legal opinion here. Because, I mean, based on your testimony, you're not currently a legal entity in Ohio. Is that correct?
We have not yet been formed, no.
Okay. I guess my question is, you know, from the basic inception of the process, what standing do you have to make this application to us?
I mean, the standing that should this go forward, we would immediately form that entity, and that's, I suppose that's
Right.
been acceptable to others in the past.
If I might, like I said, the solicitor, Mr. Pitchford, is here with us. Mr. Pitchford, would you have a legal opinion as to whether or not an entity that has not yet been organized within the state of Ohio has the standing to make an application before the Planning Commission?
What I will tell you is that a foreign company that has not yet registered in the state of Ohio is a different question. I have not come across the situation where the applicant itself is not an actual entity. Am I
Okay.
understanding that correctly? That there is no actual entity republic?
Sorry, let me just step in here because I think this is I mean, respectfully, I'd like to just explain. First of all, I mean, this is the first time that we've encountered such a situation. Republic LLC very much exists. It very much lives and breathes, pays taxes, owns assets, etc., etc. What we do in every instance when we go and into a new venture in a new town is we set up a special purpose vehicle. If our application this evening is not met positively, we obviously are not going to set up such an entity, because why would we go through the administrative headache of setting up entities all over the country if there was going to be a refusal or some basis around which we wouldn't proceed? So I really think that, I mean, it's really, we're speaking in cross purposes here. The purpose of this discussion is to find out whether there's widespread or support within this committee for what we intend to do on the property. If we had to change the application name to Republic LLC, and then either a doing business as or an entity to be created or a nominee, we could very easily do that with the stroke of a pen. This particular situation has not come up in any other circumstance where we've spoken to similar organizations. So if it's a clerical issue, you absolutely, I mean, all you have to do is read Fast Company today or read Forbes last week or Realtor.com on the same day, and you can see all the work that we are doing nationally to bring about change as far as disused, defunct hotels, of which there are tens of thousands of them across the country. So very simply, all we want to understand from you gentlemen this evening is whether or not there's going to be support for a rezoning of this property, given the overlay district in which we actually reside, and whether or not, subject to the design principles and all the tractates that have been put forward as far as the design terms are concerned, if we adhere to that, are we going to receive the support? So to go down a rabbit hole of whether or not the entity around which we are going to transact is in fact de facto a legal entity is, in my mind, very simply remedied by way of just explaining exactly how we do business. And we would sign an agreement to purchase with Republic, with the entity to be created, which is the SPV that we've mentioned this evening. So that really is how all of our applications go through. We're currently in about 6 rezoning applications at the moment in different geographies, and in every instance we've used the name of our SPV that we would create.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, my thought process on this is that because the entity does not currently exist, there is no applicant per se. That being said, they make a point that if they wish to amend the application with a different name, that would be the prerogative of the commission.
if the amended applicant, though, is registered in another state and not in Ohio, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that it may transact business in the state of Ohio without first registering with the Secretary of State.
It's my understanding that the failure to register with the Secretary of State is not a in and of itself a reason. It may be a factor, but it may not be a reason to deny an application such as this. So my thought is that the cure on this particular issue would be that the Republic LLC, if that is that's the right way to say that, gentlemen.
That's great.
I believe you're obviously you exist somewhere else. I didn't catch where you said if they were to request to join the application, that might satisfy the standing question. The failure to have filed with the Secretary of State is a legal question and does not permit you to file a lawsuit. So if the entity had not, Republic had not filed with the state of Ohio, they would not be able to file a lawsuit without doing so. That's my understanding of the question of standing, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
then thanks. Let me just ask the applicant then. Is there an entity that intends to form Republic Boston Heights LLC in the state of Ohio should this application be approved?
There are, well, Republic LLC has not registered with the state of Ohio yet.
I understand that.
So we do have an entity in the state of Ohio that we could use to form Republic Boston Heights LLC.
Okay, and what is the name of that entity?
I will have to look that up momentarily.
Well, I mean, I think I need to have a legal person in front of us for us to proceed with the application. And that, I mean, that's why I asked the question initially, is the representation is that there is an LLC in front of us, but there's no charter number. So questions asked, and now the questions answered that, well, we intend to form Republic Boston Heights LLC. Okay, and now our solicitor has explained that that may be enough as long as there is a legal entity in existence that could substitute itself on this application. And so then now, Chris, you're telling me that there is such a legal entity, but you don't know the name, the state of organization, or the charter number for it. Although I think I may have heard you say that it is organized in Ohio. If I did, I apologize.
We intended to do this. I apologize. Yeah, we intended to do this through Republic LLC. However, we have not filed in the state of Ohio through Republic LLC. We do own several entities that we could do this through that already were formed and exist in the state of Ohio, if that would satisfy the council.
Yeah, and then I think at that point, I mean, if you want to create Republic LLC and that be the entity that enters into the purchase agreement, you know, I'm not giving you legal advice here, but
sure,
that may work. You need to talk to your own lawyer about that. But for the purposes of presenting this application, I need an applicant, you know, a real applicant, either a person or something that a juridical person, if you will, that can come before this commission and ask us to do what we're doing. So then at this point, then, you know, it's back to you folks. What do you want to do? Do you want to adjourn until next month and amend your application so that there is a legal entity on that application? I mean,
Do you want to,
Yeah.
do you want to submit a different name? Do you want to have a name join the application?
I mean, I'd be happy to do that and look it up in the moment if we can do that on the fly and continue. Or if not, then we'd be happy to amend with a registered name shortly hereafter. It would be my hope, I suppose, that we could get some feedback from this council on whether or not, because we haven't been able to tell so far, I think, on whether or not it's worth our time to endeavor to do so, if this is interesting to the council, or if or the commission rather, or if this is not something that you guys would like to entertain.
you know,
So
as far as that amendment goes, Chris, I mean, if you can look it up right now,
Okay.
give us the name and the charter number, you know, we would accept an oral amendment on the record for that, because you're under oath. I mean, you know, so then we could proceed to the next question, which then goes back to an earlier issue of, you know, how is this compatible with the village's overall plan, and specifically with the Heinz Hill corridor overlay, as far as rezoning it from an area where residential is not allowed to an area where residential would be allowed.
If I could address that, this is Peter Gear again.
Sure, Peter.
But if I could address that for a moment in studying your zoning map and the obvious planning that went into it. Adjacent to, very close to, and adjacent to this property is a very large office and professional zoned district. And I see, we see, I believe, the real compatibility between that employment there and the types of individuals that we're looking for to provide housing for, in the young emerging professional and service folks. And believe that there is a genuine compatibility as far as the planning is concerned.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant while we're waiting for that amendment?
Yeah, apologies, guys. I'm trying to log on to my server at work remotely here to
Okay.
this up very quickly.
Hey, John, my question.
Sure, go ahead, Mr. Polyak.
I'm reading, from when I read through the application, it looked like a pretty much a pure conversion of the old hotel building to apartments. And then there is this area called Plato's Cave, and it is mainly business amenities to the residents, of the facility. It's basically a co-working space, a gym, a meditation room, yoga, media rooms, micro storage. Is what you're saying is the mixed use of somehow meeting the village center vision that was in the Heinz Hill overlay and in our strategic plan. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Are you asking the question? I'm not following. Are you saying that? I don't understand the question, because I mean, are you asking because it's only for our residents that it doesn't tick the box as far as mixed use is concerned, or are you saying? I'm not really sure. Are you just stating that? I'm not really following that the Heinz overlay district plan, it falls outside of that. I'm not really following.
Did you read the Heinz Hill overlay?
Yes.
You did. Okay. What I heard the architect saying is that he felt like having a co-working space, a gym, immediate like this is meeting. You're saying that meets the village center as depicted in the Heinz overlay is what I'm just. Is that what I'm hearing you're hearing you say?
Well, it's not for us to tell the committee what we think, is in meeting with something that you guys have planned for the last several years. All
Right.
we're stating is what we would like to do within the property.
Right. Okay.
But we can't.
I thought that I heard the architect saying that.
No, I think he was talking about a complementary use based on our offering being complementary to a nearby employer and a nearby business. That's what I understood. But
Okay.
I mean, who are
That's
we?
why I was asking for clarification.
Okay,
Within,
I just wasn't sure if I wasn't sure of the question. So hopefully that answers.
But and there's two other key parts. One of those is that we do have the office space, which is identified as co-working space available to the residents, but not exclusive to the residents. And we do think that we have some other office users that may it will be open to any third-party office user, but also we think that we have, given the expansion of the building next door, some other office users that will come in and use some of that space as well. In addition, we're exploring reopening the restaurant as a third-party restaurant.
thank you.
Okay, I do have the name. I'm having trouble getting to download the charter number right now, but the registered entity is Wassian LP Limited Partnership. Am I able to amend it to that and then continue to look for the charter number here? I think you're on mute, John.
Not used to this. WAUSEON.
Yes.
Is that the correct?
That's right.
Okay. All right. So I'll write that on here.
Sorry, our records are not as organized as I would like to do on the fly here.
That's okay. Is that what state is that registered in?
Ohio. So it's the
Ohio.
charter number that
Okay,
I haven't
great.
found yet. Yeah.
Just go to sos.gov, I think, and business services under the Secretary of State, and then put in your name and it'll pop.
There we go.
All right, while we're waiting for that, I guess what Mr. Polyak raised, as I was reading the application, I had this extra additional question. So it's not your intent to have any kind of retail businesses or retail establishments open to the public? Is that a correct understanding?
So, while Chris is looking, as Chris stated, we are looking at having potentially the restaurant reopening. I mean, I'm not saying this at all to be facetious, but I'm assuming we're all aware of what's actually happening in the world at the moment as far as retail and commercial office and other casualties are concerned. So we say that in a very measured fashion, because I honestly believe that when you look at $100 billion retail funds that are now worth 70% of what they were pre-COVID, one actually has to ask oneself, you know, where retail is actually going to reside going forward. That being said, there is ample opportunity, should there be demand, for an entrepreneur, restaurant owner from the area to be opening a restaurant in the facility, because the facilities exist for such an operator.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And then the co-working space would be open to non-residents. Would any of the other amenities be also open to non-residents?
if there was demand, of course. I mean, I think
Okay.
it's
I mean, no, that's
If-
fair.
if it-
You don't have to
yeah.
commit beyond that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Chris, did you find that yet?
Yeah, I found it registered here. I've got the original information shows the limited partnership, the date of original filing, entity number. I'm assuming that's what we're looking for, right? 893-722.
Right.
There we go.
And what was the exact name?
Wauseon, Wauseon Limited Partnership.
Thanks.
And what's the registration number?
893-722.
893-722. Okay, thanks for doing that. And just for the record, are you asking the commission to amend your application to show Wauseon Limited Partnership as a co-applicant?
Indeed, yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for allowing us to do that.
Sure. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? I mean, I can't think of anything else that, I mean, I appreciate the paucity of documentation with the application and the applicant's reason for that. As was stated by both the engineer and the zoning inspector, should the rezoning be approved by the village council, the applicant would have to come back to us with a site plan for our review at some point in time, which site plan would have to comply with the requirements, including the architectural standards in the Hines Hill Overlay District. So unless there are any other questions, I think at this point in time, I would ask for a motion with respect to the application. And understanding, and I believe you do as it's stated in your application, that all we are doing is forwarding this to city or to village council with our recommendation, either for approval or disapproval. So is there a motion with respect to the application? Because village council is going to deal with this either way. Mr. Poliak, did you have something to say?
No, I'm just getting my pretzels. I apologize.
Oh, okay. I saw your lips moving.
Hey,
Yeah.
I apologize. I have not eaten all day, and I always know that they keep the pretzels, so I'm
Yeah.
super
Join the
sorry.
club.
Super sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Anybody have a motion with respect to this application? I think we need to bring it to a culmination here.
I will make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second, John.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve the applicant's request for rezoning. And I don't have that up on my screen right now. So let me find that before we go on. Is there any discussion on the motion?
My discussion would be, Mr. Bush, with a motion to approve. I struggle that this meets what the spirit and the design of the Hines Hill Central, and it just really appears to me of more of a need to just rezone residential, and because the Village Center District had residential in it, I feel like that's the reason to be trying to get it to be rezoned to that, but it doesn't meet the spirit of it. And I don't believe that there is evidence in the application that it meets what we all as a village depicted in the strategic plan or in the Heinz overlay.
Well, I couldn't agree more. The issue I have is, as I stated at the beginning of this, is that we have no evidence in front of us to know whether the hotel can be converted such that it meets all of those requirements. And that's obviously my concern now. So, I mean, I mean, you could play this out several ways. This could go to council and then come back to us, and they may find that it's financially unreasonable to improve the property to meet those requirements. Again, I'm not an architect, so I don't know. I'm assuming they've studied this and they've studied the requirements, and they're, as I've cautioned everybody on this call, they're very extensive. You know, landscaping, parking, the Connecticut Western Reserve style. Again, I'm not an architect, but I don't believe it's an inexpensive proposition to make that building meet our requirements. However, that's not before us at this point, and that's what I'm struggling with. They're not asking us to do a site plan approval. They're asking us whether it's reasonable to do mixed use, including residential, at that location. And
They're asking for
that's what's before us at this
176
point.
apartments.
Let's one at a time, okay?
Go ahead.
They're asking for 176 apartments rezoning to Village Center, and you know it is, if they've shown that meets the needs of the vision of the village, and if you feel like you've seen proof of their of what they've given us meets those needs.
No, I absolutely have not, and that is not, in my opinion, that's not what we're here to approve this evening.
And
I
it
mean,
is
when they come back with their proposal, we may find out that they can only have 100 apartments. I don't know. Again, those are the requirements would be
their
based on site plan
application,
review, right?
their
We're not
application
approving
is
them.
210.
All right, wait, one at a time, folks, okay? Mike Bush, you're on base.
So my point is that there are specific requirements, again, for the number of units, the density, all of those issues, right? All of those things are in that district requirement. And I'm assuming that these gentlemen have reviewed that, and that when they come back with their site plan, they'd clearly be wasting their time and our time if they came back with a site plan that didn't meet all of those requirements. But I don't believe I see what's before us, but the only thing that I believe we've been asked to agree to is the rezoning. We have not been agreed. We are not agreeing, or nor have we seen a proposal for even a preliminary site plan, in my estimation.
Mr. Polyak, yeah,
deal with it
I'm
from
sorry,
a
Mike, go
rezoning
ahead.
perspective. And so
Yeah,
my proposal, or my request would be that we approve only the rezoning. That's really, we have no evidence with which to approve anything else this evening.
Mr. Polyak, did you want to say anything else?
I believe in the discussion in tonight's testimony, I believe, and in the application, it was for 210 apartments, and then obviously it got revised to, I think the discussion was 176 or whatever. And then obviously I haven't, I mean, we have it all in front of us here.
Yeah, correct.
I just don't see the burden. I just don't see it, Mike.
Yeah, I guess I'm just responding to page 2 of the application with the box checked zoning district map change. That's all we've been asked to do this evening.
Mr. Polyak, I did solicit testimony under oath from the two representatives of the village who are present. And I believe that the conclusion that they had was that this was not incompatible or not feasible with respect to the sub-district that they're asking us to recommend rezoning on. So
I hear
if
that.
we had some testimony that addressed your point, then I mean, that would be of record, and we could consider that. But
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to remind both you and Mr. Bush, when we wrote the Heinz Hill overlay, and we wrote about expanding and changing these different districts. If you remember and recall, when we talked about that, because we allowed a mixed use in the village center, we also spoke about the spirit of that actual plot of land and the surrounding area and how it impacted the entire strategic plan of the community. And I believe Mr. Bush and Mr. Codrea, you both had absolute concerns when we wrote that we need to contain that mixed use within the residential due to the numbers, right, and the impacts within that contained village center. So I would be open to hearing both of your arguments at another time if you want to reopen the Heinz Hill overlay and say, well, instead of having it here, we should have it over here. But I'd like to remind you both of when we were actually writing it, and many of us who wrote it are in this meeting right now, we talked about the problem of it not meeting the spirit of the strategic plan or the actual spirit of the Heinz Hill overlay, if all we're going to do is create a zone that we can then expand or use over here or use over here or use over here. And I believe that was both of your heavy arguments on that.
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Pitchford.
I would just offer this for the commission's consideration, that what's before you tonight is a question about whether or not to change the map and, you know, vis-a-vis the zoning code. And what you have to determine is whether or not the applicant has met their burden of proof, as you determine, and whether or not they have, you know, convinced you, offered sufficient evidence to change the zoning code from what it currently exists and what was developed a couple of years ago. You know, you can rely on Mr. Schmidt's testimony, you know, as to whether or not it's compatible or whether it's not, whether it's consistent with the plan or not. You can rely on the plan as it currently exists, and you can decide whether or not the individuals who have testified tonight on behalf of the applicant, whether their testimony should be considered. All of those things are up to the commission's discretion. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on the motion to approve and forward it to council with our recommendation to approve? Okay, hearing none, Mr. Mayor, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Mayor, you're on mute.
All right, Mr. Poliak.
Respectfully, no.
Okay. Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Codrea.
Yes.
Mr. Bush.
Yes.
I vote no.
All right, 3 yes, 2 no, the motion carries. And the Planning Commission will recommend a zoning change requested to the Village Council. Thank you very much. All right, let's go to our next, let's go to the next item on the agenda. And do we have anybody here to speak on behalf of the applicant, Cars Enterprise Enterprises, DBA Hudson Arms.
Just say, thank you, gentlemen. We'll sign.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
for your consideration. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I'm Jeremy Corcoran. I'd be representing Cars Enterprise.
Okay, thank you. Let's get the application up and get the staff recommend. Just give us a second here, Mr. Corcoran, so we can readjust our screens here. And this is Heinz Hill Road.
Chittenden Road.
I'm
Chittenden
sorry,
Road.
Chittenden. My bad. My bad. Chittenden. Okay, got that.
So just
Okay, let's get the paper copy up now. What's your last name, sir?
Corcoran, it's spelled Corcoran.
Well, thanks. Okay, would you raise your right hand, please? You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. State your name and spell your last name for the record. A little redundant, but that's the procedure.
Jeremy Corcoran, Corcoran.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Corcoran, just as a preliminary matter here, you have submitted a site plan application for property at 6381 Chittenden Road, which is in the light manufacturing district. And in the light manufacturing district, I'll go to the code so that we are all on the same sheet of music here. Light manufacturing district. In the light manufacturing district, the permitted uses are all uses permitted in the office professional district. And so if we go to the light manufacturing district and we look, if we go to the office professional district and look at all of the permitted uses and conditionally permitted uses, what you're proposing does not seem to be a permitted use under 115702. That basically deals with office use. And the conditional uses are things like restaurants, barbers, hairdressers, and accessory or conditional uses as permitted in office professional. And then if I go back to the light manufacturing district, what you're asking for is a conditional use under 116103, which would be manufacturing operations. And what we have before us is a site plan application, which would need to be presented to this commission, but we don't have an application for a conditional use permit. And what I'm saying is that at this point in time, it would seem that your application is not complete and that we could not approve your site plan unless we had an approved conditional use that also covered the property. And I'm not sure whether we can approve I don't think we can approve a conditional use under an application for a site plan review. So again, having raised the issue, we have Mr. Pitchford here, and I would ask Mr. Pitchford
Well, can I interrupt?
whether or not, with respect to an application for a site plan review, we can permit the site plan, approve the site plan where the proposed use has not been approved as a conditional use for the subject premises.
Can I interrupt just for a second? I apologize.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, we go through things like this all the time. And as you heard on the prior application, if we can work it out, right here, we'll try to do that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I got on the meeting. I wasn't real familiar with how the process was happening with right now with all the COVID stuff still. I just got the notification it was going to be a Zoom meeting and stuff 2 days ago. I am not fully prepared, I don't think, to address this. I have some counsel helping me out with that stuff, and they have most of the information. So my plan tonight was actually just to either postpone or withdraw the application anyways, because I don't want to do anything here. It's going to mess myself up because I'm honestly not prepared. I got too late a notice, and I don't have my my other guys here to help me. I wasn't able to set it up with them in that short of a time frame.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Pitchford.
The question with respect to whether or not the Planning Commission has the authority to answer and review applications for conditional use is found in, I'm looking at 1101.02. Part B says the Planning Commission shall have jurisdiction to review and decide all issues pertaining to conditional use requests.
Right, but we don't have a conditional use request.
I'm sorry, that's what you were asking me.
No, I was asking you if we can approve a site plan application where the property has not already been approved for the conditional use that's proposed for the property. And
was that part of the application, or can that be inferred as a part of the application?
It's not in the application. All we have before us is an application for site plan review.
I think the confusion there may be is that I am being licensed as a manufacturer, and that's really what we're kind of sticking to right now, is just some competitive models that we're going to start kind of really more so R&D work more than anything. But we're just looking to start being able to play with some competitive models. Because they're modified and things like that, I do need to be licensed as a manufacturer. We're not looking to do like a storefront or anything like that.
So I guess, Mr. Pitchford, would it be legal for this commission to proceed on the application right now, assuming, let's say we approve the site plan, but we don't have, and the site plan is dependent upon what the applicant intends to do, because he states in here that he wants general approval for light machining and assembly of firearms used for competition. And I'm not sure we can approve this site plan without first having, or without having along with the site plan review, an application for a conditional use permit.
Well, as we handle the prior issues, I do think that you are correct that a conditional use certificate is required. And the Planning Commission is the body to do that under 11, the citation that I just read, as well as 1161.03. If you want to table it for a month, if that's what the applicant is asking, and he can file a supplemental request so they could be heard at the same time, that would be procedurally, certainly would be procedurally okay. If you want him to, if you permit him to allow, easy for me to say, if you allow him to request the permit, the conditional use certificate, and amend his application, I think you could do that as well, but that would be, it doesn't sound like that's what he wants to do at this point.
Correct. Okay. All right,
Maybe
thank
we
you
should
for
wait a
that
month.
explanation.
I'm good with putting it off for the next meeting. I don't know
Okay,
if the best thing to do would be to just kind of withhold it or just to withdraw it. I'm not sure.
don't withdraw it because then you'd have to resubmit it with another filing fee. So, you're asking us then to continue this until our next regularly scheduled meeting, at which point in time you will have submitted at least an amendment or something. I'm not giving you legal advice here, but you need to submit us something that brings to our consideration what I feel is your needed request for a conditional use permit. So is that what you're asking us, is for a continuance of a month?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so based upon that request, is there a motion to continue this matter until our next regularly scheduled meeting?
So moved. I'll move for a continuation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll
Yes.
second.
Okay, so it's been moved by Mr. Polyak, seconded by Mr. Campbell, to continue this matter until our next regularly scheduled
Which is October 7th.
meeting. Thank you. On October 7th. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify so by saying aye. Thank you. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, sir, we'll see you next month, okay?
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Sure thing. Okay, the next item on the agenda then is the application of Mike Walsh for property at 668 East Hines Hill. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant? Mr. Mayor, did you hear anything from the
Mr. Chairman?
applicant?
I
As far
talked
as,
personally with
Mr.
the
Chairman?
applicant this afternoon by telephone. I assured him that he received the invitation to tonight's meeting. He said he was on vacation. He didn't say whether he was going to call in or not. He said that was his business email.
Mr. Mayor, you're talking about Mr. Walsh or the owner of the
Yes.
property?
Mr. Walsh.
You talked to him this afternoon?
I did.
Mr. Schmidt, were you able to, you have an email for Mr. Walsh, who's the applicant, correct?
Yes,
We do.
I have an email for Mr. Walsh, the applicant. Yes,
And we provided him the link and whatnot?
correct.
We did.
Did he ever request a continuance?
No, he did not to me.
And neither do I.
thank you. As the applicant is not here and we have no evidence before us to proceed with the application, is there a motion to deny the application?
I'll move to deny.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. It has been moved by Mr. Bush and seconded by Mr. Campbell to deny the application of Mike Walsh with respect to property located at 668 East Hines Hill Road. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Mr. Mayor, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Mr. Poliak,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell.
Yes.
I vote yes to Mr. Kodia.
Yes. Thank you. The motion carries, and we will now proceed to our next item of business is an application on the part of Land Acquisitions LLC, DBA Baymont Inn and Suites for property located at 6731 Industrial Parkway in the Village. Is anyone here to speak on behalf of this applicant?
Yes, my name's Jason Rice. I'm
Okay,
here-
welcome, Mr. Rice. Would you raise your right hand, please?
Yeah, and just so you know, Blake Williams with PH7 is on, but he doesn't have a camera. So on his computer at home, so I'm not sure
Okay.
to raise the right
We'll
hand.
swear him in where he can be heard
Okay.
and
Thank
on
you.
our record, our recorded record when we get to him.
Perfect.
So,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Rice, do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, state your name, please, and spell your last name for the record.
Yes, it's Jason Rice, R-I-C-E.
Thank you, Mr. Rice.
Mhm.
Let me find your application here. Okay, would you like to go ahead, Mr. Rice, and be the first witness for your application?
Sure.
Thank you.
We are proposing to, it makes me squirm a little bit to repurpose the hotel after listening to the first group. But we have a plan to, we actually believe that we don't need it to be rezoned, that it fits in the conditional zoning for a use to be an assisted living. So we have actually for this assisted living, and we're doing another one in Stowe currently, to be what we're calling an affordable assisted living. There is a big gap in the market where the middle market is not being catered to. Most of the assisted livings that are being built are, being built for the person that can afford $5,500 to $6,500 a month for them to move into that assisted living. And we are planning to, and we have an operator that is going to lease this facility, but their plan is to make this an affordable assisted living, that it would be somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a month. And also have the ability, the state of Ohio has a passport program, which is a Medicaid program to help assistants and would be able to take them. The sad part about the market that we are in, there's a facility that just opened in the area. I don't want to say their name, but we called and said, we've got mom that wants to move in, and asked how if they had rooms available and what have you. And then we said, well, what happens if mom runs out of money? And they said, we'll find a place for her to live, because they can't afford to keep mom in that facility. So our hope is that we are able to buy that property for the right price, and we believe we can renovate it for the right price to have it be an affordable assisted living. So our plan is to use the existing building, use the existing rooms, add a resident laundry, a small salon for them to get their hair done, to repurpose the pool area for a kitchen and a dining room, and the lobby for part of a dining room. Take one of the upstairs rooms and convert it into a resident lounge, and then also to add an elevator, as that hotel does not have an elevator currently. So that's our plan. It would be a 57 all private room assisted living.
Okay, thanks. You sat through, I think, at least one or two of the prior applications.
Yes.
And again, I always like to start with your standing to be here. So I'm not going to ask you any questions about whether you're registered, because your application is here, and Well, actually, I do have to ask that. Are you licensed or are you registered with the state of Ohio
Yeah,
Land Acquisitions LLC?
Yes.
Because there is no charter number.
yes, I don't, I would have to try to pull one up, but yes, we are a
Okay.
business that's been in business for a couple years now.
Okay, so during the course of this, while we're doing that, if you
Not to mention,
look
sir,
that up for us, but not right now. All right,
yeah,
the
just
second
so
question
I,
is
oh,
where it says applicant's interest in the property and you have checked off owner. But what you just said to me sort of intimated that you're not the owner now. So,
no, sir, we do own the property. We bought
Okay.
we bought that property and have been, just so you know, we've paid our taxes. We've paid our county taxes. We paid taxes to Boston Heights because we were operating that as the Baymont Inn and Suites
Okay.
since January 1.
okay, thank you. That clears that up.
Yeah,
Well,
sorry.
no, that's okay. You really did confuse me a little bit. I thought you indicated that you did not own the property, but thank you for clearing that up.
Sorry.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and have your other witness testify right now before we get to questions?
Sure. Blake, if you
Okay.
want to.
Mr. Williams, I know we can't see you, so we'll depend upon your affirmation here that your right hand is raised, but you need to verbally acknowledge the oath. And do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I got to hear it, Mr. Williams. Are you on mute?
Blake?
That's a heck of a way to run a meeting.
It's tough, I know.
Yeah, Mr. Williams, we can't hear you in addition to not being able to see you. And we'd love to take your testimony.
Trying to text him now. I don't know if he's having technical difficulties. He's texting me back. I'm not on mute. Okay, well,
I'm looking at the list here and he's neither shown to be on video or sound.
yeah. Well, here's
Maybe-
what we'll do.
Can he log out and log back in? Sometimes I've seen that help.
Okay.
Or you can call it back in. There's a call-in line.
There is a call-in number too on that. That's right.
And
That's
now
true.
you're going to ask me what that is, right?
I think he has all that information. It was in.
He should have that in the email, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he says he's on the call-in line.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can you indicate his number? Because he might be in the attendees list on.
I
Yeah.
see him on the panel list as B. Williams, but
I
he's
know.
there's
I
no
see him
sound.
too. His number is 601-506-4014.
Yeah, he's there.
Okay. Well,
Well,
if
let's
there's-
log out and log back in. Okay. And then
Blake,
while we're
go out and
waiting-
come back, Blake.
while we're waiting for him, does anyone on that commission have any questions for the applicant?
well, I have something I'd like to read into the record that came from our fire chief.
Okay.
And I sent it around to all of the members of the board. That's from Chief Charlie Riedel. While reviewing the plans over the last few days, John Gordon and I have concern, and this is actually written by Lieutenant Craig Molidar, the fire inspector. And I have concern over the size of a newly constructed elevator. Reached out to Blake Williams of PH7 Architects Incorporated to verify the size of the proposed elevator. He was able to email me the hoistway plan review. In that plan, it states the proposed elevator will have a clear inside dimension of 80 inches wide by 51 inches deep. The fire district believes that the elevator will be a high usage elevator due to the proposed usage of the building. The fire district needs to be able to access all parts of the building for any call for service. The fire district has a call for EMS. We need to be able to have the stretcher or cot as flat as possible for any number of reasons. The stretcher cot that the fire district has in the ambulances are the Furno Power Flex X Plus. The Furno has a dimension of 83 inches long, which is 3 inches longer than the 80 inches wide. 24 inches wide is all right with the 51 inches, but it's like that. And as they're saying, last sentence says, as you can see, the stretcher would not fit into the proposed elevator at this facility. So we were under the impression, or the fire chief told me he was under the impression there was a existing elevator. They were going to check it out and see, make sure it was going to fit, and thought it would because, you know, it was a hotel and whatever it would be that. Now, Mr. Williams, who is going to get on here sooner or later, probably will have some update to that. But I just want to read this letter in from our fire service, and it's of concern to them. And of course, we want it to be as useful for our first responders as possible.
Okay, and then what we would need, Mr. Mayor, is for the original of that letter to be made part of our record of this hearing tonight.
Well, and I did this afternoon or this morning, or maybe it was yesterday. I did
I'm
email
looking
that
at a
around.
copy of it.
I emailed around to all of you, so.
I got a
you have
copy
the
on my
copy, but
screen.
I have the original
Right.
right here in front of me, so yes,
Yeah.
that will
So
go
just
in
make sure that original is part of the record.
there. Okay.
Okay. Did the applicant have a
so-
chance to look at that?
So,
Mr. Rice, did you have a chance to see the fire inspector's letter?
no, but Blake said that he rejoined, but it said and told him that he will be muted throughout the meeting. So I don't know if there's a way whoever's hosting it to unmute him.
You know what? The only thing I can think of is if I make him host, that
Oh.
sometimes clears out. But then, Mayor, you would need to pull the host back
Yeah.
and then bring it back over.
Hey Don, I think he's saying that he's in the attendees list. Can you
But
make
he-
that?
Yeah, he's joined as an attendee and will be.
Oh, he
muted
joined
throughout the
again
meeting.
as an attendee. All right.
Correct.
So is he 601 area?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay, it's up on my screen now.
Blake,
Yeah.
are you able to?
He's still muted.
Yeah, he needs to unmute his phone, I see. There
There,
you
he's
go.
unmuted.
Blake.
Get it,
Can you
get
hear me
it.
now?
Ha, there we go.
All right, good. Mr. Williams, before we start, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly
Yes.
swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. State your name, please, and spell your last name for the record. And then why don't you tell us what your position is with respect to this application?
Okay. I'm Blake Williams, Williams, and I am with PH7 Architects. I'm the architect working on the project.
Thank you. Why don't you go ahead and tell us what you had in mind to testify to?
Okay. So as Jason mentioned, in order to successfully bring this project and his vision to fruition, the cost of the renovation is a big factor. So as he mentioned, we're reusing the existing rooms to be the new assisted living rooms. We're doing as little as possible as far as tearing down walls, rebuilding walls on the interior of the building to keep those costs low. So I don't know if you've received the site plan and the two renderings that were submitted with the application. But some of the things we're doing on the exterior of the building to sort of you know, improve the look of the existing building and give it a fresh look for its new purpose. We're going to be reshingling the roof, so it'll be all new shingles on the roof. The exterior of the building will be painted with a new sort of neutral tones color scheme. The existing pool area, as Jason mentioned, is going to be converted into a new dining facility for the residents with a new kitchen. And in order to make that dining room sort of a pleasant space to be in, the existing ceiling on that pool area is very low. It's very dark and dingy. So we're providing a new roof form over that dining area to sort of help open it up and just make it feel nicer, feel like a better place to be in, without changing the footprint of the building. There's going to be new landscaping going in, as well as a new outdoor area for the residents, so they have some outdoor amenity space. And that's basically all that we're doing to the exterior of the building.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, I did not.
Okay. Okay. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Williams?
Yeah, John. On his side of the building, there's not going to be any improvements at all besides the pool area?
The inside of the building, as Mr. Rice mentioned, we're going to be adding an elevator. There's not currently an elevator in the building. And then there are a few rooms that we're converting the existing hotel room bathrooms into accessible bathrooms to get our accessible unit count where it needs to be.
That's what
upgraded finish.
I would imagine. A lot of the bathrooms will have to be, reconstructed.
Handicap accessible.
Yeah, handicap accessible. I would think. I mean, I don't know for sure, but everybody in there is going to be at least 70, 80 years old. I would assume.
Right. There's a certain percentage of them that need to meet the requirement, which we are going to meet.
Okay.
So just so we all understand, this is just a preliminary site plan approval, right? Mr. Rice, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, this would be looking for us to get our site plan approval.
Well, but it's not, this is not your final site plan.
Okay. In respect to?
Yeah, because, I mean, it can't be your final site plan because you don't have the elevator issue resolved and,
well, the site, from a site plan, that's just the site. So from a conditional site plan approval, that's just the site, correct? Which is not the interior of the building or licensure for what would be required for an assisted living. It would be a site plan.
right. So you'd have to come back to us with a full site plan, a lot more detailed than what you have in this for our approval.
But we're not changing the site, sir. We're going to
Well,
add
site plan
lands.
means a little bit more than just what you've presented, though.
Okay, so
You know, you don't have a lighting schematic here.
we're using
We're
the
not sure
existing.
if the parking that you have depicted on this is compatible with the proposed usage. We haven't heard any testimony with regard to that, whether that parking is compatible with this, what it's zoned for currently. Is this in the Heinz Hill Corridor overlay, this property? Yes, okay. So what is the sub-district that it's in? The application just says RB.
I'll tell you, I got the map here.
Yeah, I'm not aware sub-district.
Arthur, are you on?
It looks like mixed.
Yes.
It looks like
it's got a survey
retail.
on the
I think it's mixed use general.
District, not the sub-district.
It's mixed use general.
Mixed use general. Okay, so if we look at the code on mixed use general, and just for your reference, Mr. Rice, the code section is 1163.02. And if you scroll down to that, that mixed use general sub-district is in sub-paragraph 3 in parentheses. And there are a whole bunch of things in there that it discusses what the permitted uses are in that mixed use general sub-district, and things like administrative, executive, legal, financial, etc. Looks like offices and sales offices, governmental or quasi-governmental uses, sidewalk sales such as galleries. Conditional uses are accessory buildings, motels and hotels, taverns, hardware, retail sale of furniture, restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole laundry list of the items that are permitted in the mixed use general sub-district as a conditional use. So what I don't see in there is authorization for us to permit assisted living in that sub-district.
Arthur,
Could someone, could anyone in attendance today address how we are going to shoehorn this application into the mixed-use general sub-district?
I can if you swear me in, so that way I don't get in trouble.
Oh, okay. Would you please raise your right hand? And how come you're not on? Okay, there you are. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Arthur
Okay.
Schmidt, SCHMIDT with OHM, Village Zoning Inspector. So in regards to the conditional use in conversation, sorry, apparently somebody's here. In conversation with the village solicitor, when we discussed what the definition of assisted living was, we determined that it fell under the retail component, given the definition from the Ohio Revised Code. And I would look to our village solicitor, Marshall, and I do believe that Kathy is also on the call as well as an attendee. The determination was made that it fit under the retail component of the underlying zoning district, Mr. Chairman, the retail business. And then with respect to, just to address the other comment with respect to the site plan review to Mr. Rice, the applicant. So what we have, like we had discussed before, is the basic site plan overview to get the potential approval of the use here. But then there would be some additional things that we need to look at in terms of your final site plan. So, you know, if you do change things based on the comments here, the final landscaping plan, ensuring, I know there's a couple of comments that our village engineer, Brian Gorog, has, just making sure that we have the proper accessible handicap spaces as per requirement. So there would be a few additional things that we need to be updated on those plans that you have submitted, and then any other items that the commission members want to make sure that we address for the site plan review portion of this.
Okay, so your understanding, because the application only says that we're being asked to do a site plan review, it does use the word conditional site plan approval, but your understanding of this application is that it was for both a preliminary site plan review and a conditional use permit. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So that bears on how we're gonna vote and how we're gonna write this thing up. So again, then, based on your presentation, Mr. Schmidt, I would ask the village solicitor or the, I guess you would be the assistant village solicitor. I'm not sure, Ms. Vadas. Do either of you have have a legal opinion with respect to whether or not this specific conditional use that is proposed could be granted under 1163.02.3. Is there anything that the solicitor would like to add with respect to that?
Kathy, you can go ahead. I know that you had worked with Mr. Schmidt on this topic.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
You are. We can hear you.
Okay. Yes, under, and I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting to have to speak this evening. Under 1159.03K, it allows for hospitals, convalescent nursing, and health homes, including training and teaching facilities. Under that subdivision of 1159.03, based on how residential facilities or residential care facilities is defined in the state of Ohio, I believe it would be a conditional use under the Village of Boston Heights Codified Ordinances 1159.
Okay, I see that. How does the Heinz Hill overlay, though, play out with respect to the conditional use that's permitted in the general business district?
Do you want that answered by either the zoning inspector, engineer, or attorney?
Mike Bush and I were talking about this earlier today, and there is something in the code that addresses where the Heinz Hill Overlay District conflicts with the underlying zoning district. And I looked that up today, and I thought that what I read was that where there is a conflict between the two, the overlay district takes precedence.
But the way that the overlay works is that it depends on what category he is submitting under, right? So if he's submitting under the original zoning, which is permissible, he can rely on that.
Okay, and if he submits under the underlying zoning, do we have the right to hold him to the overlay corridor design standards, for example?
Arthur, you would agree with that, yes?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, just so I understand, I'm looking here at the code, and this is, we believe this is a conditional use. What is your
But
Well,
it
it's
sounds like
not
what we heard was a
under the,
conditional use for GB.
it's a conditional use for GB,
This
certainly.
is not GB. The underlying district here is RB, correct?
Oh,
Is it RB? I'm sorry.
RB, 1163, right? No, 1163 is Heinz Hill Road.
1160.
Huh?
1160.
Yeah, it's 1160. It's retail business.
Yeah.
Retail.
And we have, oh, go ahead, Kathy.
So the underlying district isn't GB.
1160. That's what I was looking at when Ms. Vedas, or I'm sorry, Vedas spoke. 1160.03 in the retail business district does, I agree, it states, where does it state that? No, see, I was looking at, where does it say hospitals and stuff like that?
So 1160.03G allows for conditional uses permitted in office, professional, and general
Okay,
districts.
got it.
So it refers
So
back to
then-
the conditional
okay, that
uses.
helps.
So then we go to OP,
I-
okay, and let's look at OP.
Is that-
Office professional, conditional uses are, all right,
1159,
where is that a
1159,
conditional
03,
use in OP?
oh, 11, general business district.
Okay, why are we talking about GB? How does GB fit in?
Because the conditional use under 1160.03, 1160.03 conditional uses, G, conditional uses permitted in the office, professional, and general business district.
District.
So it refers back to the two conditional use sections within office, professional, and general businest districts.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that answers that. Now
Yeah,
let's
so it's-
go to the,
Yeah, so it's 1160.03 subpart, just for the
K.
record, G. Well, yeah, G, which then jumps it over to 1159.03 subpart K.
right. Okay, thank you. Let's then go to Heinz Hill Corridor Overlay District. And there was a section in there that I do want to address that talks about where there is a conflict between the overlay district and the underlying district. And so we need to find that. Well, it's in there. Let's see. Okay, here it is. If you look at 1163.01 D2, it states that standards contained in the Heinz Hill Corridor Overlay are in addition to the regulations of the underlying zoning districts and code of ordinances. Where the provisions of this chapter conflict with those of the underlying zoning district or other provisions of the planning and zoning code, the Heinz Hill Corridor Overlay shall take precedence. So my question is that this Heinz Hill Corridor Overlay does not provide for the proposed use as a conditional use. So I would like someone to tell me how we can permit the proposed use within the Heinz Hill Overlay Subdistrict, or Heinz Hill Overlay District, Mixed Use General Subdistrict. Unless we're saying that the underlying zoning applies as far as the uses that we can conditionally approve. But my earlier question, and then to answer that myself, if we approve the conditional use, it's one of the conditions is compliance with all of the requirements of the Heinz Hill Corridor District. So is that a fair statement or not? Yeah, Mr. Polyak?
I believe, if I remember, when Aaron Dominy came, and we did spend quite a bit of time on writing that part in that section, was that there are we can use the original zoning. And if we are meeting conditions, part of those conditions can be the architectural standards of the Heinz overlay or different parts of the spirit of that plan. And that was, I thought, the spirit of that section. So
Okay.
what this applicant is looking to do would be what I think Kathy talked about, looking at it from an original zoning perspective. It meets that through those different areas of the code, but where, because it's also involved in the Heinz Hill overlay, we can to meet the conditions, we can then add the elements or add some of the Heinz Hill overlay conditions, which was mainly for those folks, if I remember it correctly, was, okay, well, if we are changing use or changing and creating different conditions and meeting some of the things that are in the original zoning, at least because it's now involved in the Heinz Hill overlay, we can then add at least the architectural standards to that area, so it creates conformity within that entire district, which was the spirit of why we did that in the first place.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Does the village solicitor have anything to add to that explanation, or was that or is that a pretty accurate statement with respect to what we might do?
Mr.
Go ahead,
Polyak
Marcia.
states it exactly correct or consistent with my understanding. And I also want to point out one quick thing here, that the permitted uses under the general subdistrict, just to give everybody peace of mind, are administrative, executive, legal, financial, accounting, so on and so forth, and other compatible professional services listed in the North American Industry Classification System. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
What section is that?
3A1.
Okay.
That's what I am trying to pull up here.
Yeah, 3A1. I just found
that. Just also for the record, Mr. Hinkle, with his wisdom, also is asking the panelists to see codified ordinance 1151.01, end of the first paragraph. If someone has that handy and can.
What is it,
kind of
Don? Tell me
reference that.
again. What is it?
Codified ordinance 1151.01, end of first paragraph.
I believe Mr. referring
Say that
to.
again, Don.
You want me to say it again?
Yeah, please. I was.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So this is a reference from the wisdom of Mr. Hinkle, and he put on the chat line, see codified ordinance 1151.01, end of first paragraph is his note.
Okay.
So that
But
and
what Mr. Hinkle is addressing there is the fact that was the earlier question of whether or not the architectural design standards still apply in these districts. We had answered, and Arthur and I had both had answered yes. That is the citation. That is the sentence where it says that if there is new construction and you are in a district that has or an area that has the overlay, the standards apply regardless of the intent there being, regardless of whether or not you're under the overlay uses or whether you're under the original uses.
Okay, thank you. Got it. All right. Let's go back to Arthur's report. So I think if we're going to fashion a motion, it would have to include that this is before the commission on application for a preliminary site plan review and a conditional use certificate. Let's go back to the Heinz Hill corridor overlay and make sure that that statement is accurate.
If you look under the purpose for the overlay district, so under 1163.01 purpose and intent, subpart C3, the mixed use general subdistrict. The mixed use general subdistrict is intended to include a mixture of commercial uses such as office, restaurant, convenience stores, gas stations, retail, medical office, and light industrial. So I would argue and submit based on even if you were applying the overlay, we're still within the general and intent and a purpose, as this is an assisted living facility that's under the jurisdiction of the state fire marshal, is defined that way.
Right, but if we go down to 1163.02, three, mixed use general subdistrict. I don't see that the requested use fits in there as a permitted use. And therefore we default back to the underlying district where it is a conditional use. I mean, I think we have to go with the conditional use of the underlying district because this really is not listed as a permitted or conditional use under the overlay district. So that's why I'm saying what we're being asked to approve is both a site plan review and a request for a conditional use permit.
Well, I would argue that, I mean, you might consider this being as a permitted use as being a medical facility. And I would say that's how Kathy and I looked at it. And Kathy, if I'm saying that wrong, but that was,
yeah, because I'm not sure the Ohio Revised Code would
No.
consider it to be a medical facility, but if someone's got the
Well-
definition in the ORC.
Hold on.
I mean, these things are regulated by the state, and they're going to have to comply with all the applicable state regulations, which I mean, if we treat it as a conditional use, then we're going to impose those conditions on it.
I mean, are there doctors and nurses at the facility? Is that Mr. Rice?
Yes. I mean, so a residential care license is what you get in the state of Ohio for an assisted living. So different than a nursing home, but yes.
Speak
you
up,
will have
Mr. Rice.
doctors, excuse me?
I can't hear you.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
All
just speak a little louder, I guess.
right. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe my microphone got turned down.
No, I turned it up on my end too. Thanks.
Okay. So residential care license is what you fall under in the state of Ohio for an assisted living, which is different than a nursing home. But yes, you will have visiting doctors. You will have nurses. There will be, a med pass. But you won't have 24-hour nursing care like a nursing home. Just
Who
to
is
be
the
clear.
agency that licenses you?
State of Ohio,
But what sub-department? Is it the
Ohio
medical-
Department of Health.
Ohio Department of Health, Marshall.
There you go. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you for answering my question.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
So where are we? Is this a permitted use as a medical facility or not? I mean, most medical facilities don't contemplate long-term residential, the provision of long-term residential services. And I'm not sure I see the harm in considering this as a conditional use, because we're going to impose conditions one way or the other.
Mr. Chairman, is that your call? I mean, it's
Yeah, I mean, that's my call, because we're going to impose all kinds of conditions on the approval of this, should we approve it. And, among which are compliance with all laws and regulations of the state of Ohio, which would bring in ODH, compliance with the requirements of the fire chief. Somebody correct me, but I think somebody told me that the state fire marshal actually has a piece of the puzzle too in approving this. And all of the architectural conditions imposed by, all conditions imposed by the Heinz Hill Corridor overlay. That has to be part of any approval of this application.
So, John, I'm thinking, because I'm agreeing with you, I'm actually more comfortable under the conditional use, and it also seems to be more consistent with 116302 subpart B, which seems to, in my reading, give us, the Planning Commission, great latitude. The Planning Commission may issue conditional zoning certificates for uses herein, and subject to the general requirements of 1149 and 1151, any requests for conditional use within the overlay shall only be approved upon finding by the Planning Commission that each of the following has been met. So it seems to give us the way I read this, it gives us great latitude as long as we try to adhere to the spirit. That's my reading of this.
No, and I appreciate that. That articulates with some backup authority what I think I've made. So yeah, that's my call, Mr. Poliak, and the chair. If we've had enough discussion and there are no other questions, then the chair would call for a motion to approve the applicant's application for preliminary site plan review and conditional zoning permit, subject to compliance with and approval of all applicable federal, state, and local laws and regulations, including those, we haven't discussed this, but including those of the Summit Soil and Water District, because there may be, with your proposed use, some interplay with Summit Soil and Water about how you're going to handle wastewater coming from the facility. There may not be. I see you shaking your head. You may have adequate sewer there to handle it, but at least, you know, we're going to articulate that you have to comply with all of that in the final product, assuming that we approve it. So does anyone else have anything to add before I ask for a motion? Mr. Gonson?
Mayor, you're on mute.
Unmute. No, you're still muted. There, come on. Hit the button at the bottom.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to add, and I could just hit the space bar. Anyway, what I want to add is I did read that letter from the fire chief, and I don't know for sure if the fire chief's on the line or not, or if he'd want to speak. But in my discussion with him, if all of you have the plans there, you have the first and the second floor. Second floor has 32 rooms. The elevator that's shown on the second floor has a door that's wide enough to perhaps have a wheelchair roll into. You could not turn any kind of cot that goes in an ambulance into that elevator on the second floor. Now, when we look at the first floor picture, we see that there it is, a big door that's opening. Now, we know that it's still not deep enough to have the cot laying down. However, the thing is, the only reason you'd use the elevator on the second floor is you couldn't even, I don't believe, get that cot into there. So I could ask the fire chief to make his statement there, and I know that Mr. Williams says that this it's only a 2-floor structure, and that would be an agreeable elevator for this. But if this is something we're agreeing to, and that's a new elevator going in, and I don't know how far they proceeded with putting that in, because I know there's some work going on there already. I would suggest that if we approve this, that elevator is usable by safety forces, to be able to put a gurney into it, or a cot, or whatever we call it.
So
That's
just to be
that's what
clear,
I'd like to
this-
see put into the.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rice.
Okay, so just to be clear, Mayor, there is a secondary door, but that's just to get to the mechanical, because the mechanical, this is a machine-less room elevator. So all the mechanicals are on there. That's what that other door is. So it's not, that's not access into the elevator. The elevator comes from that front side. If, I can defer to Blake on the ability to expand that elevator to try to fit a gurney. I know from code requirements for a residential care license, it meets code. But if the fire chief would like to have a gurney, I'm not gonna.
Well,
I'm not gonna hold the. I just want to make sure from an architectural standpoint that we can fit it in there.
Well,
Blake,
what I want you to look at, Jason, when you're looking at these plans, that secondary door, that may be access, but if you look at the second floor plan, A202, you will see that elevator exits to a storage room.
No, sir. On the second floor, that elevator exits out, if you're looking at the drawings, to the left. Do you see the white opening around the masonry block? That is the elevator shaft. That is your elevator door to the left.
Oh, okay.
So
So
down
you're
on the
s- you-
first
you-
floor, you have the same thing where it exits to the left, but
Uh-huh.
the man door that showed to be swinging, that's to get to the mechanicals of the elevator.
Oh, okay. So in neither case could could a gurney even probably get into that or out of it? Because how wide
Yeah,
is that
that's
hallway? Because if the elevator's, from what you're telling me, 51 inches wide, that's just a little over 4 foot. And the inside of that elevator looks like there's only 4 foot out in that hallway. So you need to tell me how you turn a gurney that's like 7 foot long into that door that's maybe 3 foot wide. So that's not a usable elevator for fire services. So I think you need to relook at that. I'm just saying, maybe maybe Blake has some other option there. But yeah, if we're just going to use a wheelchair in it, that's great. But let's say you have people on the second floor, 32 rooms. If they need to use that and we need to get them out of there, I mean, there aren't too many options. There's a stair chair that you would use at somebody's house, maybe once in a lifetime. And here we've got 32 people on the second floor of a assisted living that they're going to be using it more than once. So that's all I'm saying. We need to consider that. And I'm speaking for the chief because he is standing silent, which is fine. And I'm willing to speak for him. But I think I sit on the Summit County Safety Committee, and that's of concern to me.
Thank you.
So,
Mr.
so if I may,
Go ahead.
I want to point out that, yeah, I agree that that elevator was never intended for use to accommodate a gurney or a stretcher because it's not required by code. And my argument would be we're not required to put an elevator in at all, but we are. So,
okay.
I mean, not trying to be argumentative. I'm just pointing out that that's the way it was intended originally in the design. But given the comments that we received from the fire chief and here tonight, we can definitely take another look at that, see what can be accommodated.
I appreciate that because
and
it would be much better if we could accommodate a stretcher or gurney or whatever it is you want to call it. Cot.
What we're here for tonight is the preliminary site plan review. This is not the final thing that you're going to present to us for approval. And if in your research as you go forward and working with Mr. Schmidt and with the village engineer, there are regulations out there that you're subject to that do or don't require that elevator. We're going to expect that the final product you bring to us is in compliance with whatever those rules may or may not say.
And I think maybe the rules they have, as what Blake's saying, is they comply with what they need to do that was required by law. However, if we're agreeing to a facility like this and you're putting an elevator in any way, if there's a chance that we could put in something that would accommodate the fire department and getting people to the ambulance, I would please ask that you look at that.
Yeah. And just to answer, again, Mayor, we'll look at that. Again, we're exceeding the code requirements for a residential care license. So again, Ohio Department of Health, they're the ones regulating that license and regulating the building code of what you need to meet in that building, and we're exceeding that. So, but we will look at that because we always like to partner. My grandfather was a fireman. I have cousins that are firemen. I have good friends. I like to try to accommodate them the best.
And you kind of understand where I'm coming from.
Yes, sir.
We're saying if that was an existing elevator and you were just adapting it to use for the building, that's a different story. But if you have to put a new one in, and it's not in already, if it's not that different, I don't know if it's possible. We would
Yeah,
ask.
and I'll have Blake to look at it for sure. I know some of the problems are in where the elevator opens, whether it can open into the corridor, it has to open into a secondary corridor, where the landing is. There's a lot of things that go into the
So you
size
might,
of it.
yeah, you might lose that storage room.
Well, we may not be able to put it at all. I mean, that's the point. We may not
Oh.
have any room. We have resident rooms on either side of the elevator.
Okay.
All right.
That's enough on this topic. You
Okay,
know what
and-
we're looking at. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, I would think that the village solicitor would be getting together with the engineer and the zoning inspector and the applicant to, you know, to come to a determination as to what, if any, requirements there are with respect to proposed elevators on the premises. All we're doing is, like I said, a preliminary site plan approval and approving the conditional use of the premises for the intended use. And then the applicant's going to have to come back to us with a final site plan approval, which is going to be reviewed by the zoning inspector and the engineer. And, you know, if that's not compliant with all the underlying regulations and stuff, then I would say it probably would not be approved by the planning commission. So, and we all know that you're going to have to come back.
Mr.
Anybody-
Codrea, was there a motion on the table?
No, there isn't. I haven't asked for a motion yet.
No, because my only comment was going to be just as you stated that that motion.
Right. That's in what I've been scribbling as we
Before any construction would begin.
Right.
Because under our code, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding that, you know, unless there's a material change or anything like that, I think that we can condition this on a essentially a more detailed plan and working with us, and that a final recommendation be brought by the engineer, or rather, the engineer and the zoning inspector. But I would ask that the motion specifically include a reference that they must come back for final approval.
Yeah, that's.
I don't believe our code necessarily requires that unless there's a substantial change. I think so. Therefore, the motion should include that.
Well, I mean, if we were here on what's been presented to us, I'm not sure that that's ready for us to.
That's my point.
To even vote on as a final site plan review.
I agree with that.
So yeah, it's in my draft that one of the conditions, if we approve it, is that the applicant have approved a final site plan prior to beginning construction. So, all right, is there a motion? And I know that this is a little bit rambling, and I will clean it up in the written action on the motion that I type up after the meeting. But is there a motion to approve the application for a preliminary site plan review and for a conditional use permit for the subject property for usage as an assisted living facility in the retail business district within the Hines Hill Corridor Overlay District, subject to compliance with all laws and regulations of the United States, the state of Ohio, the county of Summit, and the village of Boston Heights, and any other governmental entity or quasi-governmental entity with jurisdiction, including but not limited to the Summit County Soil and Water District, conditioned further on all requirements made by the village zoning inspector, the state fire marshal, the village fire chief, the Ohio Department of Health, the Summit County Health Department, and further conditioned upon compliance with all requirements of the Hines Hill Overlay District. And lastly, conditioned upon approval of a final site plan by the Planning Commission prior to the start of construction. And I should have added at the start that the conditional use is being considered under Village Ordinance 1160.03G. So is there such a motion?
I will so move.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bush. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the application as articulated by the chair, and I'm not going to go through that again. And I hope I've covered all the bases. I think I have. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. Mr. Mayor, would you please do a roll call?
Thank you. Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Poliak,
Yes.
Mr. Codria,
Yes.
Mr. Bush.
Yes.
I vote yes. Thank you.
Mayor Gauncey votes yes. Thank you. The motion passes unanimously, and your preliminary site plan is approved, and your request for a conditional use permit is approved. And I will get this out in writing in the next couple of days for everyone. I hope you enjoyed making sausage with us tonight, Mr. Rice.
Well, thank you. I would have some questions for legal because I'm not quite sure that all of those provisions fall under this jurisdiction. But I'm
If
open to
they're
move
not,
forward because I mean the thing is we're going to have to meet building code. We're going to have to meet the Ohio Department of Health code. We're going to have to meet. We don't have any Summit Soil and Water because they only do when you're actually doing site work over an acre.
Right.
We don't have any of that.
Right.
Sewer is already there. They've already approved our drawings. And so there's
And you've already repaired your district there, or your pond to the.
Yeah. Mr. Rice, what the motion said was to the extent those are applicable.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's what I just want to make sure I know.
That's understood in there. If there is no applicable regulation to apply, then
So, Mr. Rice, this is the first step of many, right? So what we'll do is you continue to, and you can have your people work with Arthur and Brian, and then my office where needed, and we'll just keep moving forward. And just so you understand, before you guys actually open up and before you start actually doing any work to remodel or whatnot, you'll need to come back before this commission with more detailed plans. Is essentially what has happened here.
Right.
But they're giving you a blessing to say yes, let's keep rolling.
And so just to be clear, with the plans that are being approved, they're site plans, correct?
you're going to come back with a final site plan for us to review.
A final, more detailed site plan.
Yeah.
Right,
and we
correct.
need
A
to-
site plan.
Yes, and
Okay.
get with Arthur and look
Yes.
at our code to see what's required
Yes,
in a final site plan. I mean,
Mr.
there's,
Rice,
yes,
Mr. Rice,
yes.
a lot, we've seen over the years, a lot of different engineering and architects have different styles of what they think goes into a site plan and what is not in a site plan. I think what the chairman is absolutely recommending is that you work with our department on how we define what a site plan is, because it includes things like lighting and parking and things like that we would need to.
Landscaping.
Right.
Yeah, exterior.
and your architect can read our code
Right.
so that he's up to speed on what's required when he talks to Arthur.
Yep. That's what I just wanted to be sure. That's all.
All right.
Yeah.
Like Marshall said, this is the first step on what's going to be a long journey. So
I
good
hope
luck.
I hope not too long. So
We'll see.
okay.
All right. Is there any other business before the commission tonight? If not,
So
is there?
I
is
have,
there-
I have some updates to provide.
Okay, go ahead, Arthur.
From a zoning
Yeah.
perspective. So in speaking specifically to, let me bring my video up. Not that you all know what I look like, so it's not a big deal. We are going to be moving forward on a few things related to 668 East Hines Hill Road. As you know, we've been, Brian and I have been working very diligently trying to understand what is going on over there. And today with the applicant was our original understanding that the applicant who was supposed to appear before you was the individual who was conducting a business on the site that wasn't part of the original approval at 668 East Hines Hill. Mr. Hinkle was kind enough to share with me the audio from the original hearing, and I don't recall, I think it was our August meeting of last year, if I'm not mistaken, on what was approved. And what was approved by the commission was office use by CTS Storage, and then he was also going to be running his rental property business out of that facility, and he also had a construction business. So there was conceivably some construction materials, or not construction materials, excuse me, If you also recall, we had heard an application for Reinhardt Foods that they were going to store their trucks over there. They have since left. I have not seen them in the area. I haven't seen them in.
Somebody mute Bill. There you go.
I have not seen Reinhardt Foods on site over the last several weeks that I've been doing my zoning inspections. So I believe that potentially either their temporary deal has since lapsed. But the point of this is to say that we found out very recently that the applicant who's actually going to be coming before you was not the one who was operating the storage on there. That it was indeed CTS Storage or Mr. Kurtz who was operating that storage on there. So we were led to believe by the information we received that it was another individual, another business that was there that didn't come before this board. And that's what we were working to get before this board, was that individual. But very recently we learned that individual was actually only using the space temporarily and was actually not even storing anything. He was using office space there. So what I believe is happening right now is that Mr. Cyrus is basically doing everything he said he wasn't going to be doing from the planning commission meeting. So we will be, now that we have everything cleared up, we're going to be working on that. I won't go through the details of the ridiculousness that was how we are trying to communicate with him, but just know that we are working on that.
Okay. And is there an update with respect to the property at 6625 Dean Memorial Parkway? Anything going on with respect to that property that the commission should know about? If something's going on that's not for our consumption, then just tell us that.
I will defer to either Mr. Pritchford or Mr. Gorog.
There was an inspection that was done recently there, if we're talking about the same property. And we are waiting a final signed report from our inspector. We had engaged an outside inspector. We had consent of the landowner to go through that property. And once we have the final report, we will be able to determine whether or not the building is sound, safe, and or whether it presents a threat to the health and safety and general welfare of the community. In other words, whether or not it constitutes a nuisance. But we are waiting the final word on that, and we will make that determination and keep everybody updated once a decision is made.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other updates that need to be provided, Arthur?
Nothing at this time. The 668 one I wanted to bring up just because they're on the agenda and obviously did not show despite our efforts of getting them all the information that was required. So I just wanted to provide an update on that for background knowledge.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did have one other question for you. Is the Ohio Planning Association going to have another uh, uh, conference this fall, and would it be virtual? And
Yes, so it was decided a couple weeks ago, and I believe that an announcement is supposed to be made, if not this week, next week, that all of the state of Ohio sections are going to be working together on doing a zoning conference virtually. So we're going to be doing it through the entire month of October, and each section is going to be responsible for a week of material, and there'll be various materials. They'll happen at various times. You'll be able to participate them live virtually, and you'll also be able to participate them at your convenience on demand separately. So we wanted to make sure that we were going to provide that information, that material. We understand not only for AICP continuing education credits for planners, but also for commissions and Board of Zoning Appeals, that there are requirements of continuing education. So we wanted to make sure that we are doing that. And don't quote me on this, but the last discussion that I had, that I was a part of with the board, I believe all of this is going to be free to those to members, and actually I think to anyone who signs up for this. So there will be no charge to participate.
so I'd appreciate it if you'd let the mayor and the commission members know when that's publicized. And then for me personally, I'd like to know if they're going to offer continuing legal education approved by the Supreme Court of Ohio.
Yes, we've been talking about sessions regards to that, Mr. Prodra. We wanted to make sure that we want to make sure that we replicate our typical zoning conference that we normally have with all of the credits and the tracks and things of that nature. So that is part of our plan, and I know that there were others who were working on it to ensure that all of that was going to move forward. So again, if the announcement hasn't been made yet, it should be forthcoming, because we just had a state meeting. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it was. So.
Okay, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Anyone else have anything for the Planning Commission tonight? I know it's getting late, and I appreciate everyone's efforts today. So if there is a motion to adjourn, we can vote on that.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Is there a second?
Yes, there's a second.
Okay, great. It's been moved by Mr. Bush, seconded by Mr. Campbell to adjourn. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify so by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, wonderful. No one opposed. Great. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
At 9:54.
Right, and I'm now, Elvis has now left the building.
Okay.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Right.
I'm taking